It says we're live, Dr. Kimberly.
What? Really?
What?
What?
Really?
What? It's not playing. It don't want to work.
It's time.
Come on, let's go.
Rolling on the road with the doc. Rolling on the road
With Dave,
rolling on the road
with the doc.
100 states of the possibilities with Dave and Dr. Burton.
All right. That was cool. Yeah. Hey, that was
All
nice.
I have to ask you, Dr. Kimberly, on this
Yes.
very wet and auspicious day, how long ago did our theme song get released?
Back in last October, maybe.
Was it? I mean, it's like that pause there. I'm just thinking, what? We're not going to hear your cousin? What? Again, it's just now part of what we do. It's just part of what we do is we get in the role with her help. So welcome. As I said, on this wet and auspicious day. If you're in Michigan, it's primary day. Tomorrow, today, Tuesday.
Today
Today is primary day.
Today is Tuesday, August 6th.
Today's Tuesday, August 6th.
Oh, I thought it was Tuesday, August 5th.
No, August 6th. Because, see, I voted somewhere on here. That's
Oh,
my sticker.
well, hopefully it'll stop raining long enough for me to roll down the road. I was going to try to go earlier, but it just kept raining and raining and raining and thundering and raining.
Do you vote here?
No, I actually vote down. Okay, see this way, go this way, that way to the church.
That way. To the church, not to the gym. I'm
Right.
going to quick look at the, because I think I did it, was it last week or the week before, time to look at the weather forecast, folks, because I don't know why I am such concerned about these things. Unlike Dr. Kimberly, who gets the roll where she's going, I just got to run out to my car. The radar looks clear, so you should be clear, though you'll have some mud puddles. Folks,
And
it's
track
been
all that
raining.
back on the floor. Ugh. So if you are tuned in via GRTV 25 and you are watching this, the primary has already happened, but it is still time for you to make it to the November ballot. So just know this is Tuesday, August 6th, the primary. However, this will air in enough time for you to go and vote in the general election. Dave has his wonderful ponytail is growing back. Looks like it's been kind of a rough day. We see some of the edges are kind of coming out of the ponytail. And he's like, oh God, let's not talk about it. And he has on a green plaid shirt and he is in his office. So there's looks like a white background. And I am here at home and I am in my motorized wheelchair. And I have on my purple glasses and all of my purple outfit. I'm in my
accoutrement.
Yes, I am in my signature purple. And it's never the same. It's always something different, even a different shade of purple lipstick. Mm-hmm. So, yes, if you're watching this, I'm not sure how far out they are at the television station when it airs, but it will still air in the time for general election. So whoever wins tonight is who's going to go to the general election, and you need to vote. And our topic today is your polling center accessible? So whether you are in the state of Michigan or not, the information is relevant around the 50 United States.
Yes, yes.
And Dave, we just had a show before the show.
We did slightly.
Mhm. And Dave stated that if you are not accessible or you don't have where you are the accessibility that you need, where can they call or look up?
Well, probably the best way to start is call your local clerk, or at least we call them clerks in Michigan. I don't know if it's the people in charge of voting are the same around the country. But you call your clerk, and you should have a voter registration card. And if you don't have that, the step before is you ask, how do you register to vote? And they'll tell you, because most places you have to be registered 30 days before. In Michigan, we actually have same-day registration. So a number of years ago, Michigan, we passed a law that changed, or actually added many options for voting, like same-day registration. We have early voting in person, because we have no reason absentee, because in the old days you had to give a reason, like I'm going to be traveling, or a reason could be my poll is inaccessible, I can't get there. So anyways, but talk to your clerk, find out where your polling place is, and don't take, if you're a person with a disability, you can vote absentee. It's like, I don't want to. We have early voting. Like I said, in Michigan, we have no reason absentee voting, but I love going to the polling place. My polling place is accessible. It's Trinity United Methodist. I think that's the name, on Lake Drive Southeast in my precinct in the Easttown neighborhood. And so, long story short, that must be why my hair looks scraggly today, because I got up early, because I had to get out here early for an event. And so I was voter number 2 at 7. And I know, again, where to vote. And I love doing it in person. So don't let them force you to vote absentee if you want to do it in person, because at one level, that's a form of discrimination, Dr. Kimberly, right? It's like,
yes, it is.
Oh, I see a wheelchair. Here's a what's it? The permanent absentee list.
Yeah.
So you're automatically sent an absentee ballot application if you're on the permanent list. It's like, I don't want to be on the permanent list unless you want to be. Again, vote the way you want to vote, depending on the options within your state. But for us in Michigan, you could have voted early in person. You could vote absentee. In fact, the person in front of me, she turned in her absentee ballot at the polling place, which again is also legal, because she, I don't know, didn't have time to mail it. And so she had picked up an absentee ballot for whatever reason, turned it in person. All these options. Talk to your clerk, but you call them today in Michigan or on voting day if you have like a question for that day. But start next week. Give them a week, because I got to count and double count and do the debrief of this week's election. But next week, call your clerk and start asking those questions about that November general election. The whole, as Dr. Kimberly started alluding to, making sure you're registered, making sure where your polling place is, and then we'll start talking about the accessibility of it.
So today, why do I hear myself back?
What's that?
I hear myself in your office.
You do?
Yeah, there we go. It's gone now.
Okay.
I want to say thank you to Star for tuning in. I met Star a couple of weeks ago. Star and I, along with a few other folks, were guest judges at a drag queen pageant. But I don't think that's what they call it, though. I think it was called Drag Race.
Drag race.
Yes. So I want to say thank you so much for finding me and for tuning in. I appreciate you and thank you for the heart.
Awesome stuff.
Since today is voting day, if your polling center was not accessible, nor was it as far as being able to get in, if you are in a wheelchair, if you're in a walker, you have crutches, or if the accessibility wasn't there for you to be able to sit down and vote, maybe it is accessible for you to come in with your wheelchair, your crutches. However, they only have stand-up booths, and they don't have a booth where you can sit down or even put you at a table, and they can put up the little privacy, little partitions on a table even. And if they didn't have that, you can, number one, talk to your polling place right then and there after you finish voting and have that conversation with them. And if that doesn't work, then you can talk to the clerk about getting your space more accessible for you. And drum roll, please, contact your Center for Independent Living or your disability network in your area, and they can help you with that.
Absolutely. And we've sent folks there. I'm just looking up, I look up these cool things that ILRU.org, and I think it stands for like Independent Living Research Unit, but
Okay.
ILRU.org, and then there's an interactive map that has, you just hover over your state, click on it, and then it'll give
that
the
again
link.
for me.
ILRU.org.
Right?
.org, and it is there. You'll see a list of like every Center for Independent Living in the nation, listed by counties that they oversee. If all else fails, in my caption, my name, our website, fill out the contact form and say, hey, can you help me find my clerk in Topeka, Kansas? We'll quick look it up and send you a link to the Center for Independent Living that represents or looks over Topeka, Kansas. And so, again, we want to help as many people with disabilities as possible to vote. And the real quick piece, the parts that Dr. Kimberly said, I did notice this morning that the very first voting cubicle thing they set up was at wheelchair height. And so since it was 7:05 and a half, 6 or 7:10 in the morning, I'm like, whoa, okay, I don't want to go there because I'll fall over in being asleep. So I went to the next one, which was non-wheelchair height. And so was able to fill out my ballot and then go turn it in. And then in the city of Grand Rapids, every precinct has at least one of the fully accessible voting stations, because the challenge is always like who can or who should be able to assist you in voting.
We're going to hold that question real quick until the station identification. Good afternoon. You are rolling with Dr. Kim and Pastor Dave. Yes. Today, I think he might be Juris Doctor Dave, though. I don't know. We're not sure what hat he's going to have on today based off the questions and comments that we have. However, if you are watching via GRTV 25, know that the primary is over, but this show is airing in enough time for the general election. So if you had issues with voting during the primary, you have time to get it corrected in time for the general election, which is in November. Dave is wearing a green plaid shirt, and I have on my purple, and we are in our respective offices at the moment, and we are talking about accessibility and voting, and that your vote counts. And don't let, as Dave says, don't let anybody bully you to tell you that you should be a permanent absentee ballot. I'm telling you, there is nothing more empowering than to wheel in and vote for the person that has your best interest, for you to live your own self-directed life, to check that ballot and then wheel over, hobble over, feel your way over, however you get there, and put your ballot in the machine, and then it counts it and tells you what number you are, and then they give you that sticker that says that you voted. And when you see your person at the end of the night, when they start talking about the preliminaries and who they think has the lead in the race, I'm telling you, there is no greater feeling than to know you helped put your person in office. I'm telling you, I think my first year to be able to vote after I was in a wheelchair, I didn't go. My person, I still got the person that I wanted, but I definitely regret not going that first year that I was able to vote, because I was so sad and depressed because I was disabled and I didn't think that I was going to be received, and wasn't being a really big advocate for myself. And so, everybody else was like, don't be trying to get out there and do it. Everybody discouraged me from voting and getting out, that it would be too much of a hassle, basically, I guess, on them. Because really, when you look at it, it hasn't been for me, because
right.
To vote. But I do regret that I allowed others to talk me out of my right to be able to pick the person that I would want in office to represent me, because they thought maybe it would be an inconvenience, to them or to myself. Do you have a lot of that happen? Or
Pardon?
I said, do you hear a lot of that from the consumers when they come in, that they've had those experiences?
It's often where, again, it's, unfortunately, as humans, we like taking the easy path. What's the store? They even have an easy button. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's easier for the clerk and the elections workers to not have to help you vote inclusively. And so, again, they're going to gently persuade you or forcefully bully you, or just sign you up for an absentee ballot, because then, again, and, it's just like in the old days in Michigan, you just said, yeah, I'm a person with a disability, and vote, you automatically get your absentee ballot, no questions asked. And so that's the biggest challenge. And then, of course, for the folks that say, like you, Dr. Kimberly, I'm going to go do it in person. It's my right. It's my obligation. I'm going to go do it in person. Then you get different levels of training on the accessible equipment, because I'm just going to say, for you, Dr. Kimberly, it's pretty easy, because as long as they have a ramp in, they have that accessible surface, and your smiling face, I know they know you, and they're like, "Come on in, Dr. Kimberly," and that you vote and you roll on. Friends who have vision loss and need to use the accessible voting machine, that can be a different question. Sometimes, again, and this, not trying to name the level of sophistication of a jurisdiction. So it doesn't matter how big or small the community is. Sometimes it just sits in the corner collecting dust. Nobody's trained on it. And somebody walks in who's blind. They're like, "Hey, I'm going to vote." And then they really start freaking out because they don't, people haven't been trained on it, or they haven't been trained well enough. I can only speak for the city of Grand Rapids, where I am a resident and a voter. Joel Hondorp, who's our clerk, is fantastic, training his poll workers and teaching folks how the equipment works, having a line. So I mean, we're helpful. In my 29 years here, 29 years, we've been doing accessibility audits at the various polling stations. And again, 30 years ago, it was in school ABC, and school A, B, and C was built in the 50s, which means it doesn't have a ramp. And it's getting harder and harder to find a public space or a space open to the public that is going to be available from, 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. is voting time. Mm-hmm. But then, they got to set up and tear down and all that. So, and they probably dropped things off yesterday or last week and all that. So it can be, a significant challenge for, as I noted, I happen to vote at a Methodist church as a polling place. When you wander in, church is kind of wide open. So, not to say voters are riffraff, but you don't know what riffraff's going to come wandering in, and do you have security? All that stuff aside, having these polling places, and I don't know if Grand Rapids has 100% accessible polling places. We continue to work with the city. One of our claims to fame, and it was probably 8 or 10 years ago, or even more, somebody was working at the polls, and they had 2 steps at the front door, and the person wanted to vote, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, what do we do?" And somebody said, "Call Disability Advocates." And we actually delivered a portable ramp so the person can get in and vote and leave. And so again, no idea who they voted for. It's irrelevant who they voted for. It's important that you vote, folks. Keep voting. Keep exercising your democratic rights. Some say they're rights. I say they're responsibilities. I
agree. I like the term responsibility, because you can't get upset when you don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And it's not the way that you want it to be. So from now till November, having conversations about voting, why we should, who needs to vote. Everybody needs to vote that is of the age of voting. An interesting point came up in last Wednesday's show is, what about polling stations that have now gotten overcrowded, and they have these long waiting lines, and there isn't a particular time of the day where it's less busy. They're busy throughout the whole day. And you have maybe some of those folks that might need to sit down if they've been waiting for a while. Is there a possibility at a polling station for you to go in and say, "Hey, look, just like we have handicap parking, disabled parking, how about on this line, we have folks that can't wait in line that long, or even have an express line, or maybe a couple of lines, or even having chairs, along out in the parking lot." Because this particular polling place and one of the precincts that did the early voting was pretty crowded, and there were folks that really couldn't wait that long, so they got discouraged
Yep.
and said, you know what, skip it. And then, of course, we hope that they're back today to vote. But if it's a busy polling site,
Yeah.
Uh,
And unfortunately, without digressing into, like, you hear about the shenanigans where, like, for example, some states have made it illegal to, like, pass out water to people waiting in line. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You cannot, like, if you once your person gets in line, you just can't help them because you might, like, again, they might think, oh, the dude's got long hair. He must be a Democrat. So the Democrat is helping me with water. So I'm going to vote for Democrats because they're so helpful. And we don't want to, they don't like to prejudice.
influence anybody's vote. Okay.
Exactly. So, but that's the way to do it. But I believe it's not cynical. It's real. It's like kind of what you just pointed out, Dr. Kimberly, that they just want to discourage people from voting. I mean, again, the stories are massive out there about, especially a lot of inner city precincts where, you'll have a suburban precinct, middle class, upper middle class, predominantly white. They'll have 40 voting machines. And then you go to an inner city precinct, predominantly lower income folks, people of color, and they got like 2 machines. And people are lined up for hours. And the other one, you just kind of wander in and I don't have to wait. Like this morning, guess what? I had no wait at 7:10 in the morning. But who's getting up at 7:10? And
Well,
so all that.
There's never a wait at my precinct. And yes, we do have a plethora of machines. And yes, we do have varied ways of voting that are accessible.
Yep.
Because there are, I think that my precinct has what do I want to say, looked over who comes in and votes and made decisions based off of those folks that come in and vote, and they've made it easier for them to come in. Because I definitely have more folks that are retired in my area.
Yep.
And so the voting center is more geared towards those that may need extra help.
Yeah. And I was kind of chuckling to myself when you were saying to have the speedy line or a short line for folks who can't stand that long, or for whatever reasons, can't wait that long. But also I was thinking, if you have a small child, because you're not going to wait in line with a couple, 3 little kids.
No.
And so I was chuckling because I might have to borrow one of your grandkids. Yeah, babysitting here. I got to get to the front of the line. Help me out. Because, not to say your grandchildren aren't extremely angelic and extremely well behaved, but any little child is going to become antsy after 10 minutes waiting in line, and then 20, and then, because it was, what year was it?
Hi, Jason. We want to say hi to Jason Lee, who's watching. Jason,
Hello.
I know Jason has some visual impairment. Do you want to share some of your experience? Have you voted, or do you vote by absentee ballot? So if you want to type in the comment section, I'd appreciate it. Or if you have someone to assist you with,
And it's, how to say it, that assist, because I like to say to people, vote early and often. And that was, like the joke from Chicago in the old days, people, you could vote often, and all of those shenanigans. Folks, there has been like zero, it's not zero, but it's like 2 or 3 two or three total incidents of voter fraud in the 2020 election across the nation. A lot of allegations, zero substantiation of fraud of other than two or three. And the people who were convicted of voter fraud actually voted for the person who said he was cheated. Different story. But this idea of like, we're trying to keep the process so safe and only you, but then the challenge is like, and again, asking your clerk, are you, because the most important thing you have to do, of course, Dr. Kimberly alluded to it, is you got to do your research and find out, like, what are the issues you care about, and talk to the candidates, reach out, call them, ask questions. What do you think about this issue? You know, like, I care most about.
I have it right here. They just came today. Let's see. Boop. Beep, beep, beep. I'm back. I meant to have them right here, but they were on the other side of my desk. Jason said that he had help voting and he did it by mail.
Okay. And again, it's those pieces, and probably somebody had to sign that they helped, because of course, this was a long time ago. A guy I knew who he basically voted for his 90-something-year-old mother, got an absentee ballot, and he just filled it out and is like, of course she's going to vote this way because she always votes for this party. So those small shenanigans, I mean, is that technically legal, illegal? I mean, the adult had their own ballot. Who really filled it out? Nobody won or lost by one vote that election, so that person didn't impact it. But to say that, make sure you understand what the legalities are for the assistance you get, because some states are even making it illegal for people to drop off your ballot for you. It's just really, again, talk to your clerk. I'm serious, Dr. Kimberly. Again, it's ways to discourage people from voting. So well, I request an absentee ballot and I can't get it through the mailbox. What's dropping it off? I mean, now a lot of communities have drop boxes.
Yes.
Unfortunately, because of COVID and other reasons, the mail is slower than it used to be. I mean, back in the old days in Grand Rapids, if you dropped something off by midnight downtown Grand Rapids, it would be delivered anywhere in the Metro 6 the next day.
Jason said that he didn't like voting because of how he was treated.
Oh, in person?
Yeah.
Jason? So, yeah.
So we have, here we go. We have vote yes on the August 6th for the Kent County Sports and Entertainment Facilities proposal. We have vote yes to renew the early childhood millage. So those are.
Yep. And here we can show those things, and we can even say vote yes, because as nonprofit types, you can say vote yes or vote no on ballot initiatives.
Yes.
And so that's a ballot initiative here in Kent County, Michigan, to renew our early childhood millage. I personally and professionally think it's an awesome thing because it helps children 0 to 5, making sure they're getting ready for kindergarten, first grade, and helping first-time parents, second-time parents figure this thing called parenting out. A lot of home visits, play groups, things that, I don't want to say we take for granted, but we can't. And so that's what this investment is as a community, because the kids who are one today are going to be caregivers and doctors and nurses in 20 years.
Jason said, he corrected me. He said, no, he didn't do it because of the way he was treated at work. So, got it.
So Yeah.
Yeah,
Again,
it is now 4:34. Can you believe it? Time flies when you're having fun. And we want to say thank you so much for tuning into Rolling on the Road with Dr. Kimberly and Dave. And when you see this on GRTV 25, today is Tuesday, August 6th. Today was the primary. However, this show will air on GRTV 25 prior to the November election. And we need for you to check your polling place. If you did not vote in the primary, you can still vote in the general election. And please, you have from now until November to make sure that your polling place is accessible for you based off of your disability. And I still have it up here on the screen to check that if you are in another state, you can check in with your Center for Independent Living to get help if your area is not, if your center is not accessible for you, or if, let's say, you're blind and you need to use the voting machine and there's no one trained on it, you need to make sure that you call in advance. But don't do like I did and not vote because someone else thought that it was going to be, well, they wanted to discourage me. But you have to be your own advocate, and you need to make your vote count, because trust me, we need to win by a landslide and not by just a few little votes, because I'm telling you, when it comes up, and our last election in 2022, we had two folks that went against each other, and we found out that somewhere in there, it was a difference between either 3 votes or 50 votes, somewhere in there that was floating around. But that was a very, very close race. They were asking, to have the ballots recounted to make sure that that was correct. But imagine if it was, one version said it was 3 votes difference. The other one was 50. Still, that's quite close. And just imagine, had it been 10, 12 years ago, and that was me. I didn't vote because someone discouraged me, and the person that I wanted to, be in office didn't get it because I didn't go. And that's how those things happen. So you need to do it, and you need to know that our vote counts. If you're in the state of if you're in the state of Michigan, according to the CDC here, we have 2.3 million adults who are listed as disabled and receiving some sort of disability pay. That's 2.3 million. And if each one of those persons is connected to one person, now we're at 4.6 million folks that could be voting. That's not even including the parents of children who could be voting. So we definitely have a powerful tool, and we have a huge community, huh?
And as I've said before, after elections, people slice and dice the data. They're always trying to figure out with exit polling who people are. Again, they're trying to pigeonhole us mainly for okay reasons, sometimes for good reasons, and sometimes for nefarious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But, today's first shameless plug, I started using a new search engine called Perplexity. And so when I went to Perplexity, Seth Godin, I'm a Seth Godin fanboy, and he sent me here. And I asked the voter turnout of persons with disabilities. And real quick stats, in 2020, the voter turnout for people with disabilities increased significantly as compared to 2016. So it went up from 16 million in 2016 to 17.7 million in 2020. And the gap, though, between the voter turnout percentage of people with disabilities compared to people without decreased slightly from 6.3%. So 6.3% more non-disabled people vote by percent. It went down to 5.7%. So the gap went down a little bit. States with easier access to mail voting saw higher turnout increases among people with disabilities. However, here's a stat that should just tick off every advocate listening. While progress was made, about 1.95 million voters with disabilities, almost 2 million voters with disabilities across our country, still experience some difficulty voting in 2020. Continuing to improve accessibility and voting options could further increase turnout among this population. You think? I mean, almost 2 million people still experience difficulty. Talk about, I hate using shame, but by golly, we as a nation should be ashamed that 2 million people tried to vote and they said, yeah, it was difficult because of my disability.
Jessica's on here. Hey, Jessica Strands. Can you tell us if you've had a really good experience with voting or not, if you choose to share? If not, I understand. But thank you so much for tuning in today. She is the volunteer extraordinaire. I just love her.
Nice. Jess is fantastico. Thank you for joining us, Jess. And so, yeah, back to stats, and more stats.
I want to know because there isn't a place for you to check to say that you're disabled. How do they get those numbers?
Oh, they do it again with exit polling. They do it, other ways to reach out to folks, and they're always doing the research.
Okay.
A good friend, Diane Fleeser, who used to be the executive director of Disability Network West Michigan in Muskegon. She's finishing her doctorate. And part of her doctorate is to look at things we've talked about numerous times on this show, the disparities in access to vaccines and other help for COVID based on if you're a person of color with a disability compared to a person not of color, i.e. a white person with a disability, and what are those differences? And she found this wicked cool treasure trove of data.
Whoa.
I think it's at the University of Kansas. And it's just, it's this ongoing study. And then, of course, they've got the statisticians who are doing the, and because folks, when you hear about it today, there'll be a new poll and they'll say, so-and-so's ahead by 1 point, but that's within the margin of error because no poll can be 100% accurate. And of course, without digressing too far into the accuracy of polling, because most of us have these things, i.e. cell phones, as opposed to landlines, less people answer polls than used to. So the validity is getting less and less, and the margin of error then increases. One of my favorite is I saw there was a statistical survey done about seniors in Kent County. This was many years ago. And like it said, 42% of seniors love the color purple, like whatever the number was.
Right.
And then down on the bottom in this column, it said the margin of error is plus or minus 40%. I'm not joking. It was like the margin of error is like it. So in actuality, it could be from 2 to 82%, but we, and so all of that polling, there's people researching this, asking folks with disabilities, and then they extrapolate up, that a lot of times you'll see polls that say this was a poll of 600 registered voters, because once you get to 600 or 1200, your margin of error doesn't decrease much. So it's like you can stop asking and go on to the next thing. So I mean, and again, it's more than a science. It's a huge industry related to polling. How do they ask questions? It's without, again, we could have a few. I think, Dr. Kimberly, we got to make time. There's a guy, and his name is Bernie Porn. True story. He's an Aquinas College grad from here in Grand Rapids.
Mm-hmm.
He is Epic MRA is his polling company here in Michigan. He's been polling for a long time, and he knows how to slice and dice the data to be as accurate as possible. Because again, if he says, whatever, 42% of seniors love the color purple, and so 42% of this that you order, 42% of your stock is in the color purple, and all of a sudden nobody buys purple, you're like, Bernie, your polls are terrible. I'm never going to hire you again, right? Mm-hmm. So if he doesn't have good polls, people don't call him for more work. So all that being said, this was a long answer to say, how do we know that 1.95 million Americans with disabilities expressed difficulty in voting in 2020? A lot of research and extrapolation, but it's research, and I'm going to guess it's plus or minus 2%. So it could be over 2 million or just under 1.9 million is going to be the true number. But I'm just saying, if it's more than a few hundred, it's a shame.
This is true. We want to say hey to Hugh Randall for tuning in. Thank you so much, Hugh, for tuning in. And it is now 4:46, and we want to say thank you so much for tuning in to Rolling on the Road with Dr. Kimberly and Dave. Today is Tuesday, August 6th, and if you are watching via GRTV 25, please know that you've missed the primary. However, please go out and vote. Please, please, please vote in the general election.
Mark your calendar right now. Don't feel bad for missing the primary. Go right to your calendar, November 5. Mark like October 15th, because that's, I can't remember exactly when early voting starts. Mark your calendar for,
I think it's in two weeks.
Yeah, at least 2 weeks. Mark your calendar for next week, Tuesday, which would be August 13th, to call your clerk. Remember, don't call your clerk this week. They're too busy. Call your clerk next Tuesday. Say, hey, what do I need to know about
my polling century?
My polling. And the fun thing is, I forgot to finish my comment about the Chicago early and often voting. I get distracted. Did I mention I got up way too early to vote today?
Yes, you were there at 7:10 in the morning.
Did I say that already?
Yes, sir.
And I forgot my nap this afternoon, so I'm tired. And so anyways, I tell people you can vote early and often, and here's how. You vote early because you get absentee ballot, vote early. And to get often is you remind people to vote. So you get a credit in heaven. So like if I called Dr. Kimberly yesterday and said, hey, Dr. Kimberly, remember tomorrow's voting day. Don't forget to vote if you haven't voted already. And I text a few dozen of my friends, remember to vote tomorrow. Or last week I would have said, remember to vote next week, or go to early voting this next weekend. And every one of my friends that would not have voted, had I reminded them, I get a little gold star in heaven, in voter heaven. So you get great credit, and that's how you get to vote often. And again, it's you yourself, don't get me wrong. I'm not encouraging you to illegally vote more than once. You legally vote once and only once.
We're going to get audited.
You get often credit by reminding your friends to vote. So put it on your social media, call your friends, say, get out and vote, because the more of us who vote, the better our country will be.
Absolutely. I just want you to know that it was really creepy because there was all this light and you're talking and all of a sudden the lights just went out behind you and it's like, oh no.
We have motion detectors, for
Yeah.
for saving electricity. So if there aren't humans dancing around in the hallway, they get turned off. And it's almost 5 o'clock here in the East Coast for those watching in other parts of the world, and watching delayed. 5 o'clock. Things get quiet around here at Disability Advocates. Hopefully nobody's napping and they wait till they get home. Once again, ilru.org to get a hold of your local Center for Independent Living in the United States, so you can ask for help, because as Dr. Kimberly had said earlier, it's about you to advocate for yourself. However, when you're advocating for yourself, you get other people to help you, support you, and to go with a group, but you're going to be speaking for yourself the whole time, though you got people behind you helping support you get to that microphone. And it could be a mythical microphone, because if you're just talking with the clerk or the deputy clerk who's in charge of voting, ask those questions, ask for help, see what they say. Always ask, hey, can you put that in writing and email it to me? Because then you can forward it to your CIL and say, hey, here's what they said in writing. Because, and I know clerks wouldn't say this, hey, I didn't say that to you. So
Right.
quick, put that in writing, because my memory's not what it used to be. I don't have a pen. Can you just quick and email it to me? Here's my email address. So get it in writing, check it out. That's the voting process. So, we've been focused mainly on the voting process, and we've mentioned it just once, twice. Do your research about candidates and issues, because a lot of states and localities are going to have different ballot initiatives. Dr. Kimberly held up the flyer. Here it comes again for the early childhood Ready by 5 millage. That's a issue. We also have an increase in our hotel motel tax on the ballot today. There it is. Vote yes August 6th for the hotel motel tax, so that we can build a new soccer stadium and maybe a few other things that will help increase our community. Did I tell you my cool idea about the soccer team, Dr. Kimberly? Hey, I am just like, folks, I really haven't been drinking today. I'm just
He's just punch drunk tired. And he's just like,
and so here, sorry, folks, I have to
what?
disclose publicly my allegiance in the NFL, the National Football League. I love the Green Bay Packers. Sorry, people who are in Michigan, I still love you. I've loved the Packers for 50 plus years. And the cool thing about the Packers is they are owned by the people of Green Bay. And so a lot of times people complain about professional sports teams. It's just kind of like a billionaires club, the owners. But one team, the Green Bay Packers, is owned by the city of Green Bay. And so I'm thinking, like, I'm in favor of this tax increase to pay for this soccer stadium. But why don't we, like, us citizens own the team, not just a local, very wealthy person, because you got to be a wealthy person to buy into professional sports now. When you read the headlines about like a sports team that a billionaire bought for a few $100 million 10 years ago, and now they sell it for a few $1 billion. Unbelievable, Dr. Kimberly. But back to today's issue, folks. Sorry for that quick diversion.
No, he's not. Because it has to do with voting, and
do your research.
So we're just telling you that we can tell you yes to vote yes on both of these issues, but we cannot tell you, not on this show today. Now,
not on this show today as a nonprofit.
But tomorrow, that's different. But today,
tomorrow and after 5 o'clock or on a coffee break, I can give you my personal opinions, but never my professional opinion as a disability advocate employee concerning any person on the ballot, even the nonpartisan part in the city of Grand Rapids. We have a mayoral race, and it's nonpartisan, but that still is a person. So I can say vote yes on the early childhood millage, but I
And for
cannot
the
say
visitor-funded community assets.
exactly. But I cannot say, oh, a huge vote yes. Folks outside of Grand Rapids is vote yes for the Kent District Library. Oh my goodness, somebody made a mistake last year in the ballot language. And last year they actually approved a slight reduction of their tax level. And it was like a 10-year millage for the Kent District Library. The Kent District Library is such an awesome organization. They were here for the ABA celebration.
Oh my gosh. So I haven't got it posted yet, and I know the guy is probably looking for it, but their bookmobile is accessible. So they have a lift on the back. So we did this whole big film thing where the lift brings me up. I roll
Can you
in.
believe it?
I get to
bookmobile
roll
with a
in
lift.
Bookmobile. And I remember I lived over by Ottawa Hills Elementary School, over in that area on the other side of by St. Stephen's and
Yep.
East
On
Town,
Hall and Giddings.
East Grand Rapids. And I live on Ethel Street, which runs straight from East Town all the way up to going into Ottawa Hills. And I just remember in the summertime, that was my favorite thing to do. In fact, I still have books from way back when in my bookcases. So this is not a fake background. This is my real house, my real home. It is. And I still have books that at that time you were able to keep a book, and then, they would come back and you would, bring one back. But to now, some 50 some years later, to be able to still get in there on the lift, it was just phenomenal. Just phenomenal.
Again, I was speechless, which at this moment in my life, you're amazed that I could even be speechless at any time. When I saw that lift at the backside of their bookmobile, it was like, oh my goodness, a bookmobile with a lift.
Yes.
And of course, the Kent District Library is like, well, what else would we do, Dave? They have such awesome inclusive programs. Just an awesome organization, Kent District Library. But unfortunately, somebody miscalculated which year their previous millage ended and the new one started. So they have a 1-year gap. And so this is just if you vote yes, anywhere in Kent County outside of the city of Grand Rapids, vote yes for Kent District Library. So we can say that about ballot initiatives. Vote yes on ballot initiatives. We cannot say, vote for any particular candidate, be a nonpartisan judgeship, a nonpartisan city municipal race, a partisan race. Nonprofits cannot talk about people. You can talk to your people about issues. Like we could send out, you'll see, and maybe we'll do some of this in October, where you can send out a questionnaire to candidates and you then can publish their answers to your constituents. And so, back in the old days, because it was actually Bill Hardiman versus Steve Pesca for state senate back.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And so we had a newsletter and we asked them each 3 questions. They both answered the questions and we printed it in our newsletter, what each one was going to do. Unfortunately, sometimes like the Rapidian, which is an awesome citizen-run newspaper, also under the umbrella that GRTV is under. So the Community Media Center, they do GRTV. You might be watching us on GRTV right now. There's the Rapidian, which is a citizen-run newspaper, citizen reporters. And they had a questionnaire for the candidates for mayor and for different city commission, first ward and third ward. There's a lot of people running for each. My friend Mindy Isasi, who's second ward commissioner, is running unopposed this year, so for her reelection. So, so there's
you know that Reggie's running for third ward.
he is a friend of ours, Reggie Howard. We're not no endorsement there. We're just stating a fact. Anywho, the Rapidian, they got answers from all the candidates except for maybe one, but I saw something recently that was kind of disappointing. I don't know if it just like candidate did not reply before the deadline was like the response for half of the candidates, that they just didn't respond. And sometimes, I mean, it's like, do you think, it's a group that if you speak your truth, they're just not going to like you anyway. So why rile them up? So you don't respond. But I don't know. I used to have fun answering those things because, again, it's just opportunity to tell people what you think. So anyways, Dr. Kimberly.
It is now 5:01.
1 hour, 1 minute, 11 seconds. The timer said up there.
Yes.
Up there.
So if you missed today, you still have time to vote in the general election. So make sure that whatever your accessibility is that you need, that number one, you start with your polling place. And then number two, if that doesn't work out, go to your clerk and simultaneously go to your Center for Independent Living. And there's the link right there on the screen. And it is your responsibility to put the person who best meets your needs for you to live your best self-directed life in office. It's your responsibility.
Awesome. Awesome.
So we'll see you on tomorrow with Rolling with the Doc. And we'll see you on next week with Rolling with the Doc and Dave. Woo!
And I'm going to go take a nap.
Okay.